Hey guys, welcome to an update for my TBR cart. Every few months I like to go in and fill this cart up. Oh, and I'm going to apologize for the lighting right off the bat because it's cloudy. The sun doesn't know what it's doing. We're just going to live with it. I use this TBR cart as my first place that I go when I'm creating my TBRs each month. This is kind of what I generally try to pull from first, with the exception of my Agatha Christie right there, and then I have some historical fiction that I've added there. It's because my TBR cart couldn't hold enough books, so we'll add some more to it today, and we'll probably start working along the back. There's still lots on it I haven't read, but it's nice to have more options. Some of these books have been sitting here a while, but eventually I'll get to them, right? I have quite a bit of diversity to add to the TBR cart today. I'm not going to go through this in any particular order, but I might update it later and kind of make... A long time ago I had a shelf for middle grade, a shelf for nonfiction, a shelf for classics and etc. I used the front and the back, but today I'm just going to put them on and then maybe organize them afterwards. So let's just go in order here, which is just random order. The first one I'm going to be adding is the list. I just hauled this book. I got it as a gift from one of my subscribers. This is a dystopian book where the city of Ark is the last safe place on Earth. To make sure humans are able to survive, everyone must speak List, which is a language of only 500 words. So this reminds me so much of Dr. Seuss and how he was challenged to write a book with only 50 words, and out came Green Eggs and Ham. Everyone is only allowed to speak List except our main character, who is Leda. She is apprenticed to the wordsmith and she can read all the words that have ever existed. Forbidden words like freedom, music, and even pineapple. So that sounds like an interesting plot to me. I'm very curious about that one. This one is a middle grade graphic novel. This is book 2 in the Lightfall series, Shadow of the Bird. I have loved the illustrations of this series so far. The first book was amazing. I've peeked a little bit at book 2 here. This is another one I just hauled. I think it came out March, April-ish. It is a fantasy world where a girl is searching for her grandfather and she comes across this creature that helps her, and they live in a world where there's multiple different sources of light, kind of like the sun. I don't remember all the details, but it was interesting. Curious to keep going. I hear book 2 is not as good, but it almost never is, so that's okay. I also want to read Hood. This is the first book in the King Raven trilogy. I just hauled all 3 of these as well, and then I realized after I got home, it's not in this book, but the other 2, they're totally from someone I know. She totally brought them to the thrift store and I bought them. So Stephen Lawhead is a Christian writer. I don't know if these books have any Christian themes at all. My husband is actually just finishing the series now. Every time I buy a fantasy or science fiction book or something of that sort, he always reads it before me. So I think this is a Robin Hood retelling set in the Middle Ages, I think. And he said it's very interesting. It gets a little bit confusing because there's the Welsh and the Norman invaders. There's all these different people that are living in what is now Great Britain, but they're all going by different names because it's changed so much. So I'm curious about this one. Oh, this one is a Sanderson one, and this is a series I haven't started yet. This is his Reckoners series. The first book is Steelheart, I think. Yeah, this one's book 1. From what I know, this is a science fiction, I think it's an anti-superhero kind of story. It's a trilogy and I own all 3. I'm currently reading a Sanderson book, the novellas for the Skyward series, and then I hope to start this sometime after. This one the author sent me a couple months ago and I really want to read it. It's called The Imaginarium. It's book 1 in the Underground series, and it is about a couple whose kid went missing. Their 5-year-old daughter, I think there was a mass shooting that took out the small town's only kindergarten class. There was no survivors, but it turns out the kids are still alive. This reminds me a lot of the beginning of the Tom Threadgill story, The Collision, where kids are in a bus accident and they're all dead, but actually they weren't dead, they were missing. So very curious about this one. See, can I fit this on here? I definitely picked up too many books for the space that's at least on this one side. This is a middle grade book called All the Grays on Green Street. I don't really know much about it. I kind of just really liked the cover. It's set in Soho in 1981. We've got 12-year-old Olympia, who's an artist, and in her neighborhood that's normal. Her dad and his business partner bring antique paintings back to life, while her mother makes intricate sculptures in a corner of their loft. But then her dad disappears in the middle of the night, leaving her only a cryptic note and instructions to destroy it. So I really liked the cover and it sounded intriguing, so there's that one. Okay, then I have Sharon Creech's Moo. This is a free verse novel about a girl who moves to Maine. I don't remember where they come from. And I'm pretty sure I read this a few years ago, but there are a couple other books. There's also Home of the Brave, written by, I think, is that one Catherine Applegate? I think so. I think I read those at the same time, and they both have to do with people moving to the States, or at least to a different part of the States, and a cow, and so I get them confused. So I can't remember if I read this one. It might be a reread, it might be a new book. I feel like I like most of Sharon Creech's books. There's been some that have been not as good as others, but for the most part I really enjoy her writing. Another middle grade, this one is historical fiction, is called Someone Named Eva. This one is set in Czechoslovakia during World War II, and the Nazis send Malada to a Lebensborn center in Poland, and she quickly discovers that holding on to her true identity will be the greatest struggle of her young life. I think this one was written in the 90s, oh, 2007. Okay, my timing's off. It has really good ratings on Goodreads, but I had never heard of it until I came across it on Book Outlet a while ago. This one I found at I think this was a library sale. Mozart's Sister. This is the story of Mozart's sister, obviously, but I started reading Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu, which was the story of Mozart's sister, but it's historical fiction with a fantasy twist. This is just historical fiction, but it is Christian historical fiction. So I'm curious. This one I think is also historical fiction. I've had this one forever. I think this might have been in my very first, or one of my very first Book Outlet hauls. Mapping the Bones. I've had it for over 2 years. So we're set in 1942 in Poland, and oh yes, this has some fairy tale vibes because we've got like Hansel and Gretel kind of things going on here. And unfortunately, the one book I've read by Jane Yolen, which was Briar Rose, was a disappointment to me, and so I've been terrified to pick up more of her books. I also have The Devil's Arithmetic by her, but I want to read this one and, I don't know, figure out if she's an author for me, maybe stop buying books by her. Another one I've had for quite some time is Border Sun. This one is Christian fiction. I don't remember. It's been years since Edward has seen his wayward son or even allowed thoughts of him to enter his mind. The last place he knew Tyler was in El Paso jail 6 years ago. Then he receives a phone call from a woman that his son needs him, and another from a federal agent searching for him. Okay, so I don't know. I've had it for a long time. Definitely should read it. And then this is also a Christian, well, this is Thomas Nelson, so Christian fiction. This is about Nina. She carries a camera wherever she goes so she can view life through a filter safely. Her mother abandoned her to the streets, so she was adopted by her uncle, but then her uncle is murdered and she ends up being the prime suspect. So sounds interesting. I feel like when it comes to Thomas Nelson, I don't really believe their like Christian label anymore, but when it comes to like suspense books, at least I know it should be fairly clean, so there's that. Then I got this one, You'll Never See Me Again. I think when I bought this, I thought it was going to be a historical fiction book. It has really good reviews on Goodreads, I believe, but it actually sounds like it's more of a suspense book. Betty's husband returns from the war, broken and haunted, and she knows her marriage is doomed. Then she escapes with a new identity. It says, Betty quickly finds that starting again is much harder than she thought, and she never imagined it could end in murder. Sometimes you have to keep running if you want to survive. So yeah, I totally bought it because I thought it was historical fiction and then realized it wasn't, but I'm still interested because it has really good reviews. This one I've had for a very long time. This is a free verse book, Helen Frost. It says an accidental kidnapping leaves two girls grasping for answers. So Ren and Dara meet at summer camp and they recognize each other instantly, though they've never actually seen each other. Oh, it's been 6 years since something happened that affected them both profoundly. Dara's father stole a car and drove it home, not knowing that Ren was hiding in the back. Dara was the only one who guessed that Ren stayed hidden in their locked garage. What? Now in cabin 8 at Camp Oakwood, each girl knows the other's most private secret, and neither of them wants to talk about what happened. Will they ever learn the truth about their past, or will they be grasping for answers? Interesting. I don't know if I ever read the entire back of that. So it's free verse, and it's like quite thin. So, oh, it's not all free verse? It is all free verse, but some of them are really long lines. I probably shouldn't like show right at the end of the book. I don't know. Some of them are longer. Some chapters have like longer lines for the free verse, and some of them are shorter. So we'll see. Now I'm kind of at my close to my max capacity here. Now we've got the Blackbird Girls. In the wreckage of Chernobyl, a friendship is born. So this is middle grade historical fiction, and I've heard really good things about it. So this one I gotta read soon. I've actually been on a really good streak with middle grade lately, so I should probably read that one really soon. Then I picked this one up at home in Mitford because I feel like it's going to give me Anne and Green Gables crossed with like English countryside vibes, even though it takes place in the US. I don't really know anything about it, but it says it's easy to feel at home in Mitford. In these high green hills, the air is pure, the village is charming, and the people are generally lovable. And so when I'm feeling in the mood for just like a feel-good, cozy book, I feel like this is what I want to try to pick up. Okay, we are maxed out. I don't really want to put any on the back, so we'll see what we can do here. Then I've got Stories That Bind Us by Susie Finkbeiner. I have read one of her books. I have another one on my TBR this month, and then this is my other one that I own by her. And this is set in 1960s in Michigan. I think maybe all her books are set in the 60s, or all the ones that I have at least. And this one is, the main character is a woman who is never expected to be a widow at 40, and her estranged sister comes to town with her 5-year-old nephew. So we'll see. I really trust her writing after that first book. I just love that one. Then we've got Margot. This is a like alternate history if, what was her name? Margie Franklin is the character in here, but she's actually Margot Frank and Frank's sister. So it's like if she lived instead of dying in the concentration camp, maybe this is what happened. That intrigues me. Oh, and then I decided to do a poetry book, the poetry of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. This is, I think, my last poetry book in this collection that I have that I haven't read yet. So definitely want to read that. And then Emily Climbs. So this is book 2 in the Emily Star series. Book 1 is called something, Emily of New Moon. I read that one a few years ago, and I think I've read it twice actually. I haven't continued with this series, and so I should be finishing the Anne series this month, and then I want to work on the Emily series. And then the last book, also a series book. This is Pardonable Lies. This would be book 4, I think, in the Maisie Dobbs series. I've read the first 2. Book 3 is on my TBR this month, so I just want to keep going with this. This is like a really nice, like floppy paperback. This will be a nice one to hold when I'm reading. This is historical fiction set in between the 2 wars, and I've been loving the series. So there you have it. It didn't okay, they don't all quite fit on there perfectly, but it will work. There we go, a little bit better. So these are the books I'm going to be trying to pull from first when I'm making my TBRs. I do have a bunch of non-fiction books here that I put on a list to read for this year, and honestly I just have not been in the mood for non-fiction. Normally I always have at least one on the go, and I kind of do now, but I'm like really dragging my feet with it. So I don't know, those ones will take me a while to get through at this rate. but I'm really excited about all these other books. So let me know what intrigues you, what I should maybe pull off for my August TBR, and thanks so much for being here, guys.